All right, well, hi everyone. I'm Dr. Karen Sutherland from the University of the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and it's about 5 p.m. here, so it's not as early as it is for many of you. I'll just share my screen and get started with my presentation. So I've got a few things to show you relating to social media engagement and how to use it to build really strong higher ed communities. So in this session, I'm going to talk about what actually do I mean when I'm talking about robust. It sounds like an academic sort of term, but I'll just explain what I mean by that, and then just looking at just some of the research that has been conducted in this area, and some of the research I've conducted with a team of researchers from USC, where I'm from as well, and then looking at how social media can actually be used in that way. I've got some really good examples of that too, and I'd love for you to share yours as well. So there'll be times throughout the presentation where I will ask you if you could share some of yours, and we'll see how it works, because I'll come out, I'll stop sharing my screen and then have a look and see what you're typing, and then we can discuss that, but we'll give it a go. So I'd rather it be me not just talking at you the whole time, but we actually have a discussion, because there are so many amazing things that you're all doing, particularly in this area, that I think we could really share them and learn from each other. And then just some questions at the end if you have them. And I put this little meme up because that was actually taken there. The kangaroos are actually on our campus. Can you believe it? Like, we're like the stereotypical Australian university with kangaroos. So, and that was just the Dolly Parton challenge from earlier in the year. So please humour me. So firstly, I'd like to discuss, like, what do I mean by this term robust higher educational community? So firstly, I'd like to unpack just this idea of community. So, I mean, there's the dictionary definition, and, it's just that feeling of fellowship and people coming together and connecting over sort of shared attitudes, interests, and goals. And if you think about it, a university is the perfect example of that. People coming together all for really positive reasons to develop their knowledge in particular areas and to make positive change in the world, really, as well. So, so that's what I mean by community. And how robust that is, or how strong it is, it really depends on this idea of social capital. And so social capital it's the health of communities in terms of how strong its actual networks are. So following on from that idea of social capital, it's like, well, a community is really comprised of participants and rather than members. And so if everyone's just a member and nobody's actually doing anything, it's more just like a group where nobody interacts. It's a community is where people work together to achieve things, and they help each other out and support each other. And this has been really important, particularly this year when we really needed each other to get through it. There's been different sort of little sub-communities in the overall higher educational community. Academics have worked together, professional staff have worked together, and students have worked together, and then we've all worked together to try and make sense of it and get through the other side, even though many of us are still sort of there and trying to work on it. So we've all had to really help each other through. And so in that sense, a community, it's actually a living entity, if you will. It's active, and it's constantly moving and growing and evolving. But the real cornerstones of social capital as part of that sort of healthy community, and what a healthy community really is the two cornerstones are really around trust. So people being able to count on each other. So people saying they're going to do something and then actually doing what they say. And then this idea of reciprocity, I always get this wrong at this time of the day. So reciprocity. So it's about, it's this idea of exchange. So people helping each other. They may not always be doing it at the same time, but it's just that feeling that I could count on you if I needed it, and then I know that I would have your back if it was the same. So this idea of sharing ideas, which is almost like what conferences like this are, where we're all sharing and learning from each other in even a broader higher educational community that's not tied to one specific institution. So it's just this idea and this exchange. So everyone benefits at the end of the day. So I want to ask a question. Let's try this question answer thing. So what do you think of that idea of a community is comprised of participants and not members? And how participatory was your community at your university this year with the way that everything has been? I'm just going up to now to, so we've got some really great things. So, and I wish I could read them all, but I'm glad you're all, so actually, I don't think anyone's actually said anything yet, but that's okay. We'll keep moving with the presentation. So why focusing on current student engagement can be the key to this community building. So what this whole focus of this presentation is really about, I'm an academic now, but I used to work in student recruitment and marketing and communication at Monash University for a number of years before I sort of moved over to academia. And what I found that there was, and I'm sure it may be different now, but there was such a strong focus on recruitment, of recruiting new students, rather than really trying to build the community in a really focused way while students were actually studying. And now with social media, it's such a great thing to do, to really just focus on building those relationships and that sense of community while they're with us, completing their degrees, because they're our best brand advocates. If we give them a great experience, they're going to share it, and they have such a great influence over whether or not other people will come to the university and sign up for a degree. And we've only got them, if they're just doing their undergrad, we've only got them for 3 years. So 3 years to try and build a sense of community is not a long time if you think about it. The first year they're really finding their feet, and then the second year they're getting through, and then the final year they're just starting to look at what what's going to happen next when they leave. So it's just really focusing on their time there to make them feel that sense of belonging. They're also our future customers. So if we give them such a great experience as an undergrad, chances are they will want to come back if they decide to do postgraduate study or even a high degree by research. So it's building those relationships and building that connection with them while they're with us. So we're their first choice when they decide, or if they decide to come back. And they're also social media influencers. So some students, I know at USC, have massive followings on social media, and you wouldn't, they're very unassuming, you wouldn't even know, but they do. And if they're sharing their experience and they already have this hugely engaged audience, we can actually leverage that to our advantage. So you won't know, that's the thing, you won't know. People who have a massive following won't be sort of walking around telling everyone about that, though some do. But it's about building a strong sense of community with all of our students as much as we can. And then these sorts of benefits flow from that. So now for some research. So I conducted some research with some colleagues a couple of years ago. So this was pre-COVID. And I was really interested in finding out whether students were using social media to, I guess, come to university events, so find out about it, to meet students, like their peers, and then catch up face to face, these sorts of things. So using it to actually influence their offline activities within the university community, that's really interested me. And the sample was quite small. It was 106 undergraduate students. We're quite a small university, and sometimes it's very difficult to get students to do surveys, but so this is clearly not representative of every university everywhere. But from our study, it showed that 82% of those students, they did not use social media to find out about university, like central university events, and they didn't use it to engage offline in their academic communities. So when we had offline events, you know, a couple of years ago, which I'm sure we'll return to in the future, but yeah, so most of them did not use it in that way, which was kind of interesting to me. And what that could mean, it's actually good news in our current COVID-19 landscape, because offline events have been minimised anyway, so they weren't relying on it to find out about that. They were using it in other ways. And I mean, it's probably different at different universities, and I'm sure you do your own analytics and analysis on the data and everything. But just working out whether maybe social media isn't the best way to promote face-to-face events to students. So, but I'm sure you'll gauge that in your own institutions. But clearly in our student cohort, it was not. But what was even more interesting was that the students who did, like the few that did use social media to engage offline, they were much later in their degree. So there were nearly 67% of the students who used it to engage offline, they were either in their third or their honours year. So it was the students in their first 2 years of the degree didn't use it like that at all. And so what could this actually mean? Well, it could mean that maybe students in their first and second year just aren't familiar with using social media in that way. They aren't aware of the benefits of connecting offline with their universities, or even via social media with their universities. And maybe they don't know how, or maybe they don't know what's on offer. It's almost like they don't know what they don't know. So, you know, maybe it takes a while to learn what universities actually have on offer through their social media channels. But on the upside, just over half of students who actually connected with their university's official social media profiles said that it actually helped them to feel connected to their university community. So that's actually a really good result. So I know it's not 86%, and you know most of them didn't, but at least you know over half of them said it did help them in some way, which is interesting. And what that could actually mean is I think it's a really good opportunity for universities to leverage that to just try and keep fostering that sense of belonging and connection with their students who are already studying at the university, and particularly now because they clearly really need it. We've just gone back at USC, we've gone back to face-to-face a few weeks ago, but it's not like that around the country in Australia by any means. Most things are still online, so it's you know about how to use this technology to try and keep building those relationships and those support networks for students who, not even the ones who are struggling, but just students who are just going to the university, who want to feel part of something and feel part of that overall academic community. So, all right, I'm going to try again. Maybe I was too quick before, but so can you share any insight into how you have successfully engaged with current students this year on your official social media channels? Any examples you can share? Great, thank you. Thanks, Carolina. Allowing student ambassadors to take over Instagram Live or Facebook Live has worked a lot for our customers, or running student ambassador stories. That's an excellent way. The student takeover. Yeah, and I think it's because students want to see other students and feel that connection. And even when current students see people that they know, I think that really helps to build that connection as well. And I remember when, social was still such a new thing, and senior management used to be petrified of student takeovers, even though there are always approvals, levels and processes in place. So, yeah, I'm really glad that that's happening now, because people want to connect with people they identify with. Virtual campus tours, that's very cool. So getting an authentic glimpse of the campus. So I'm sure there were a lot of your virtual open days this year as well, where we tried to use our current students to introduce new students as well. So sort of similar. Great. All right. Well, I'll get back to the next section and I'll leave you to keep chatting there. So how social media can help to build community. It sounds like you're all over it, but let's have a look at just some terms here. So, I mean, it's that two-way functionality of social media that can really help to build that trust and reciprocity. So, I mean, you've got the university Facebook groups, which sort of make the community a bit more, I don't know, like the interactivity is a bit more so than on the official page. Like I know for my courses, I've built little Facebook communities for around each sort of course, and students end up staying in there, and it's actually become quite a community. Graduates have stayed in there, and it's quite interesting how these things evolve. And the groups normally are around sort of specific needs, like the example I gave with the courses, but it's around disciplines, or we have a textbook swap, and then we have student stalker spaces, which sounds sinister, but I'm not sure if they're called that when we're at your institutions. But yeah, so it's just student-run university groups. I stay right out of them, but but students tend to want their own community where the university is not sort of looking over their shoulder the whole time, and I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing to do. And ways that you can encourage this sort of communities to evolve. So asking for participation and then rewarding it when it actually happens. Because sometimes when you ask, there's nothing. Or you put a question out there, there's just like crickets. And but just, I guess it's almost like rewarding good behavior by showing others that they will be rewarded. You can't do it all the time because we don't have that sort of budget. But just showing, even thanking and shouting out and things like that when people actually do participate and contribute. Asking what the community wants and delivering it is always good. So giving them sort of buy-in around things like online events, or a name, like coming up with a name for something, just sort of getting them involved and sort of crowdsourcing ideas and things. Highlighting different members from the student community, of course with their permission. Just to get to people to know them, and they almost become little mini celebrities in the university community. Providing some sort of fun experiences as part of that community. So particularly in Facebook groups and things where it's not a public thing, but it's just within the people of the group. And I mean, Facebook now has that rooms functionality where you can have like mini events and things through Facebook, and Facebook Lives with university staff, guest speakers, and you were talking about doing the Instagram Lives as well, which is a really great idea. And I know that most students are more at home on Instagram anyway, but they tend to, like at our university, they mainly use the messenger function, but they do tend to join groups, but then they don't post on Facebook regularly or anything like that, but they seem to be happy to join an actual Facebook group. So this looks scary, but stay with me. So, this is a theory that I came up with to try and explain how pre-COVID, how, but it can still be used in our current climate, but I'll explain it. How relationships can be strengthened and also community. So the relationship between the university and its students by keeping on sort of moving activity from online to offline and then back online again. So it's sort of putting a task up or some activity that requires the people participating to do something offline and then share it back online. And so it just keeps this sort of constant connection between the university and the student, the current student. It works in all sorts of organisations by just driving that activity on and offline. So a good example, which isn't university related, but it's the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. So if you remember that, so it would start with someone being nominated online, and then that person had to then film themselves putting an ice bucket on their head and then nominate someone else to do it, and of course donate as well, and then post that video back online, and then the next person had to sort of follow suit. So it was just keeping that activity going and that connection going. So in times of social distancing, now the offline component could really focus on just doing that interactivity or that activity within the student's own offline environment. So it could be like a home scavenger hunt. And I've seen some universities do this already. So a home scavenger hunt, or showing where your study space or your best study snack recipe, or just something to help to give the students a task to then share a part of themselves, within reason, and thinking of sort of the privacy issues around that, but just something that still shows their personality, to share and build those relationships with the other people in their community, while sort of keeping them active and connected to the university. So the propinquital loop, which is that diagram, it's from a public relations theory which uses a component called propinquity. So that's where it comes from. But the name aside, have you used this sort of technique in your student social media initiatives? Have you had any sort of events where students have had to do something offline, then share it back online, or anything of that nature throughout this year? Social media challenges seem to be very popular. Yeah, they are. And our student services team used an online scavenger hunt to get students to know their campus. That's a good idea. We did an Insta share your favorite study space with a dedicated hashtag. Excellent. Yeah, it's good, and it starts a lot of discussion as well, because either it's like the students are commenting saying it's something they didn't know, or it's something that they connect with and they do too. So it just seems to spark discussion around that. Excellent. So some case studies. So let's have a look at some. So this one, it's clearly a USC one, but this wasn't it wasn't online offline one. It was quite interesting actually. So, and it just evolved. We had a big sort of beach deck chair thing, this thing here. Like, it looks quite small in the photo, but it's like massive. You could fit like 3 people on it. And it was around for, I think it was like open day or something like that. So people would take photos and share it and things like that. Because we're Sunshine Coast, we're clearly like near the beach, so they have a big beach chair. Makes sense. And marketing team took it away. Like it was just sitting on the campus for a while, a couple of days after open day, and then they took it away. And then this student made gravestones where it was, we're just saying, you know, RIP to the chair, because they missed the chair and they wanted the chair to come back. And so when USC saw this, I think he actually posted it on social media and tagged them into it. And so they sort of used the images to then start this game with the students. So they wrote poems, they hid the chair. I think it went on for about a week or so. They hid the chair a couple of times, and then if they found it, they got a prize or something like that. So this just evolved from one student, and luckily marketing saw it, you know, and then ran with it, and it got a lot of attention because people were just intrigued by what was going on, and then it really got a lot of current students involved in it as well, because they wanted to find the chair, and they all sort of worked together as well. They didn't really know each other, but they worked together to find the chair. So there's one. Some other research that I found around sort of Facebook groups. So Berger and Wild in 2016, they actually experimented with university student events and groups. And so they did it in two different ways. Firstly, they set up a Facebook group of students. So they got 500 students into the group, and then they used the group to promote events, a regular sort of event that they thought the students would like, and attendance was really low. However, instead, then they ran the event first. The other approach was they ran the event first, something that they really wanted, and they ran it in over a number of weeks. So I think it was a couple of months. They ran the same event, same time every week, similar format, but you know, something, it was like a free pizza night, or you know, something that the students wanted. And at that group, then at the event, they asked students to actually join the Facebook group at the event. And then what they found is then after that, the interaction from the event, after the event, just went gangbusters in the group, and more people came to the event each week, because it seemed like the community, people got to know each other face to face first, and then the Facebook group just evolved from there, and then they fed off each other in a positive way and helped each other grow. So it was almost like that face-to-face interaction was really needed first for people to build that connection, and even to generate the word of mouth. So, you know, some people would go and then tell other people how good it was and to join the group, and then it just sort of spread like that. So long story short, it's probably better at an event to then build the group and get people to interact in between the times of regular events, to make sure that, you know, they're still keen and to keep that connection going. It's almost like that, you know, propinquitous loop sort of thing, that sort of online, offline connection. So some other case studies, there's Marquette University. So they have two good examples of, they did like a Pride photo competition, and I'll go take you to the website. And then they did like an amplifying mentions campaign as well. So what they did with that is they took notice of, they were doing social listening, and they could see that students were talking about how excited they were to come back to university to start the new academic year. And so then they created a montage of these tweets and then put it out on their social channels as well. So it's a 3-minute long video. I'm not going to play it, but I'll play a bit to give you an example, and I'll show you some from the Pride photo one as well. So it was like a photo competition they did. So it was a while ago, but it still worked well, and it was on Flickr. So so they were just cute. So, you know, they just had to be wearing the university logo in some way or colours. And so it just sort of showed off the members of the community as well. in different ways. So there's that example. The other one is the video. So I'll just play a little bit of that. It's pretty pixelated. That's better. There we go. That will be for that. But I was just told the audio won't play for that, but that's okay. It just gives you an idea of how you can repurpose content, and that's user generated. Another example is UniBuddy. I just wanted to share this one because they also have a sort of live chat functionality that's you can put onto the website. So it's almost like Facebook Messenger style. And so they've done research as well to show that, in particularly international students, they want to talk to other international students. I mean, that's really important when they make their decision. And most of international students find information on the website to help them to make their decisions as well. And so what some universities have found is actually having live events with this chat functionality where prospective international students can chat to current international students has been effective. So Middlesex University used it, and you can see that's just what the interface looks like. It's a bit similar to what we're using today. And yeah, they found it to be pretty effective in connecting with prospective students. And so the prospective students who used it, you could see they found it to be good, or very, very good. So just another way to get that two-way interaction, and having that peer-to-peer communication is often the thing that will get someone over the line in terms of their decision, rather than just the university, themselves, a recruitment staff just doing the talking. It's always, as great for current students to talk to prospective. This is an example as well from something that I do. It's just evolved this year. So it's actually a research project where I interview graduates and I share it with, so it goes on my Facebook business page, Twitter and LinkedIn profiles. So it's social media content, but I'm actually collecting interview data. Like, that's what it's for. And I'm going to write up. So it's students or graduates who studied social media at even just one course at my university, because that's what I teach. So I'm trying to track where they went on to go. But what it does is that it's when I show it to current students, it really helps to inspire them and make them feel part of this broader community, whether these graduates, they're not at USC anymore, but they still feel connected. And it also helps reconnect the graduates back with the university as well. So they're often so happy to hear from me or from USC, and happy to sort of share their experiences and their advice to current students as well. So yeah, so that's been going really well. I think I'm up to episode 22 now. So that's just another way, and I think too, because it's also like I'm an academic talking to graduates, so it's almost like it's quite informal. The marketing team have said that it's fine, because I had to sort of explain why I was doing it, and I did approval to use the logo and those sorts of things. But yeah, they actually have sort of been happy for me to go along with that, and it's been going really well. So I just think it's a good way to I guess show current students what they can do, because sometimes it just seems so far away, or sometimes they feel a bit discouraged, and it just helps to sort of lift them up and give them, I guess, a bit more not direction, but a bit more of an insight of what you can do, because these grads have gone off into so many different directions. So it's just interesting to see where they've ended up. So looking at these case studies, do you have any amazingly innovative examples, more than you've already shared, that you could share about how you also engage with current students using social media? I'm just looking at Stephanie said, we give out hoodies to our applicants with logo on after our taster days, and students would share these on Twitter with the hashtag. That's good. So there's been lots of sharing. So I really like that. Thank you. I thought it was going to be crickets, like I said, sometimes happens in the Facebook groups with the students. So I really appreciate your participation. So all right, I'll move on to the final part of the presentation. So key takeaways, I've sort of covered it all. So, oh no, let me get back. It was like saying, that's it, I've had enough. Okay, so it really wants me to finish. Here we go. Apologies. So in a nutshell, healthy communities have participants, not just members. So people are working together, and trust and reciprocity is really important. So getting that, particularly on social media, getting that that two-way interaction going. And remember that current students are so important in promoting the university by what they share on social media, and giving them a great experience so they come back and then tell everyone about it as well. And students can feel very connected to their university through their social channels. So, using those to the best of your ability to keep building that sense of connection, and so that it stays with them even after they leave. They may not come back for 5-10 years, but the main thing is that they come back. So just keep that relationship going, and trying to drive that activity online, offline, and then back online again. And remember to amplify community voices. So when people are saying great things or sharing about the university, give them a shout out, or share their content if it's really good. And that sort of helps to build that relationship with them as well. And so if you would like to connect with me in any way, please feel free. I teach social media, so I'm pretty much on everything. So please feel free. I'd love to connect with you. And if you have any questions about the presentation, please put them in the chat, or even just contact me if you prefer to do that instead. These are just the references I used in the presentation. So if you want any of these, let me know and I can send them to you as well. And so that is it from me. So thanks everyone. It's been really interesting. So if you have any questions, you can, I'm not sure how much time we have, but feel free to ask me now, or you can ask me later. Thank you. Oh, sorry, here's my cat. Grand finale. So we've got actually a lot of time left. So there's 15 minutes left, but it's my pleasure, Lolly. From your experience, are there any big no-nos for social media engagement with students? Just be careful the open questions that you ask, because when you're coming up with questions trying to foster engagement, you got to think of the worst case scenario of the questions that might come back. So Sometimes polls are better, or, just be really, I guess, mindful about the answers that could come back. But to be honest, I haven't had many problems with students on social media because their identity is pretty clear. They're less likely to do something really stupid on the university's channels because, particularly using their own profiles, I find anyway. But yeah, so that would be my number one thing is just be careful with the questions that you ask when you're trying to get a response. And of course, when you do student takeovers, I mean, just make sure that there's that element of sort of approval in place as well, just so yeah, just so you safeguarded. Because I know particularly at the universities I've worked in the past, senior management can be still quite fearful about social media. So you've got to reassure them as well to sort of get them, leave them sort of happy and comfortable with you doing what you want to do with it. Are there any other questions? Do you think attitudes towards social media activity on social media are quite localized or pretty general across the board? That's a really hard question. So, in terms of attitudes, do you mean what I mentioned about sort of senior management and do you tailor for different international communities? Yeah, and it can be quite a tough one. So I guess if you were running a specific event for a particular country, then I would definitely tailor it. If you have sort of countries where most of your students, international students, come from, then I mean, if you were having an interactive experience where students could talk to other students, I would have a student represent, from that current student from that country there to talk to those students as well. So yeah, but it can be hard, particularly when you attract students from a whole range of countries equally. So yeah, so I would think about who's going to be in the audience, and then yeah, just see what you can do to think about what experience they would like, who would they like to talk to most, and then try and build something from that. Any advice for dealing with different nationalities with different cultural norms? And that's hard too. So because different cultures also use different platforms, and sometimes they use same platforms but differently. So I guess it's just really understanding the audience, isn't it? It's really understanding how they're using it, what they're using, and then trying to build content around that. Is on certain platforms, like on platforms like Facebook, you can actually target particular countries and things of people who follow the page, like particular geographical locations, and only that their content will be seen by people in that geographical location. But so it really depends on the platform, I guess. So it is tough, but it's probably one of the most challenging things I think about social media is tailoring it to different cultural differences. Absolutely. I wish there was a really simple answer to that. Are there any other questions? Okay. Thanks, everyone. It was really great. So, oh, are there also any trends amongst different age groups? Undergrads or grads? Oh, it's hard. It's a really tough one as well because there'll be sort of trends again in particular geographical areas that may not sort of work across. So the best thing you can do is ask current students and really understand that audience as to what they're doing and how they're using it and what they like to watch. Roughly speaking, what time resources do you use dedicated to social media? Well, see, I'm a lecturer in social media, so I don't work in sort of recruitment or that anymore. I used to, so I'm not sure what my university does, but I know we only have one social media person. So um, for all, for the whole university, and we've got a number of campuses as well. So she is running around crazily most of the time. So yeah, I wish senior management would actually provide more um, resources to that, but I think it comes from really reporting that data and the wins really well to try and build a case to get more resources. So I think that's it for me now. I'm sorry if I didn't answer those questions as well as you wanted, but it's tough, and it's tough. The main thing is do your research and know your audience, learn as much as you can, and then try to build that into your social media activities. So thank you, everyone, and feel free to connect with me on other channels to continue the conversation.